it was done. I didn't want to live anymore. It was that night I lost the will to live.
We are the door-to-door experts, and we're on a mission to bring honor and integrity to the door-to-door space. To do this, we put our creative heads together and developed a show highlighting some of the top performers in the industry. We travel the US to document incredible stories, successes, and challenges. It's not about selling, and it's not about us. This is Beyond Knocking.
I grew up here in Winchester, Virginia. My family moved here when I was 11 years old. We never had a lot of money growing up, and it was something that I always wanted, but something that I didn't really quite understand. My dad died in 2008, and after jumping around trying to figure out what I was going to do, how I was going to become a man, I actually landed in a wood shop that my brother-in-law was starting. Essentially what we did was we tore down old barns and used the reclaimed lumber to build custom furniture. I spent 6 years there working, mostly building chairs. My goal and purpose of working at the wood shop was I knew that if anything was to happen, if anything really horrible was to happen, I needed to have a good work ethic. It's not something that I believed that I had growing up, but I knew it's something that I really needed to learn. I eventually met my wife and we got married. During the time of our engagement, I was told and really had to discern that I needed to find a job that was really making money. As much as I enjoyed working with my brother-in-law, it was time to leave. I landed in the insurance industry doing hail and wind inspections for insurance companies, and my income essentially quadrupled in 1 year. That was a really fulfilling year for me. I was able to pay off credit card debts. I was able to feel like I was providing for my wife. And after a year of working there, I made it into roofing contracting, working for a local outfit in Front Royal, Virginia called Roof Simple. Starting out, it was really beautiful. I went from something that was really just there, I could depend on it, to a 100% commission job knocking on doors. I very quickly found out that I was actually incredibly good at knocking doors. I was convincing, I was nice, I was kind, I cared, I listened, all those things. I became very successful pretty quickly. We built up savings and we're working on paying off debt, and it got to the point where my ceiling of understanding or my goals kind of ended there. My goal was always to provide for the family, and work was always meant to be that mode to which I was going to support my family. Towards the end of 2020, complacency got to a point where I ended up making a $5,000 bet on something that I was pretty sure I was going to make a lot of money on. I didn't tell my wife because I was almost certain I was going to make money on that, and come to find out, I actually lost all of it. It was $5,000 I'll never see again. I told myself, like, you got money, it's fine, this isn't going to really hurt you. And it really didn't at first. In January of 2021, we ended up getting a few inspections done on our house. Our upstairs bathroom was leaking, and we found out that we actually had mold. And it was the worst kind of mold. It was black mold. Mold is a really interesting thing to learn about, because as soon as it's disturbed, there's these little spores called mycotoxins that kind of go all over the house. And when they get into your HVAC system and they kind of go everywhere, contaminating everything in the house. Black mold is incredibly dangerous. The same day that we found out that we had black mold, my wife told me that we were pregnant with our second. We were both really happy and at the same time very scared. It was a very traumatic day. My wife said, we can't stay here. We have to get this fixed. We have to leave tonight. Hotel, friends, family, we cannot stay here tonight. Inside of 2 hours, we packed up a couple clothes, threw it in a suitcase, and we left. My mom has a small house. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath. We had a daughter. She was sleeping on the floor. My wife and I got to sleep in my mom's bed. And I just remember saying, okay, 3 weeks, we can handle this. This is hard, but we'll get through this. But one thing after the next started to go wrong with the house, and 3 weeks turned into 3 months at my mom's house. And as much as I love and appreciate my mom, that was so hard on my pride. My job as a man was to provide, and I didn't feel like I was doing that. I had to become dependent on my mother at the age of 33. That was excruciating. I'll never forget one night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and my 2-year-old daughter was sleeping in the bed between my wife and I, and she was moving around and kicking me in the back, and I couldn't get sleep. I was exhausted. I was emotionally tired. I was physically tired, mentally just done. And I remember just telling her, please stop kicking me. And I raised my voice at her. She was trying to sleep. She immediately started crying. I remember my wife trying to soothe her while she was crying. I got up, just anger mostly at myself for having lost it. And I went out into the living room, and it was done. I didn't want to live anymore. It was that night I lost the will to live. I remember crying out to God, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I can't handle it. Please take me. Please take me now. And I closed my eyes, and I just hoped, a hope beyond hope, that my heart would stop and that I would just go to heaven. But my heart didn't stop, and I was really upset about that. I didn't land on the floor, my soul didn't leave my body, and I remember 30 minutes later just saying, God, I'm really disappointed you didn't take me. I was done. I was so broken down by life. I was so broken down by my failures. And looking back, it was as if the complacency that I felt, which is really a lack of gratitude, was God saying, James, I have a lot that I want to do with you, but you're taking everything for granted. Everything I've given you is a gift. So I need to take it away from you so that you can understand what you have for what it truly is. And he did that. The next morning, I called the pastor at my church, and I said, I need to talk to you. I need help. And as I talked to him, I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't have the strength. I don't want to live. I'm done. I'm done. And he said, I get it. We talked for an hour. It was so helpful. One of the things that he told me was when I said, Father, I can't get through the rest of this day. I can't do it. I don't have the strength. And he told me, stop worrying about the rest of the day. I want you to take the next 5 minutes, and I want you to just focus on the next 5 minutes. Don't worry about this afternoon. Don't worry about this evening. Don't worry about the house, the marriage, your mom, your child, the pregnancy. Don't worry about any of that. Focus on the next 5 minutes and try to do that as best you can. Do you think you can do the next 5 minutes, James? And I thought to myself, I can gather up every bit of strength that I have. I can gather up every bit of strength that I have, and I can get through the next 5 minutes. I think I can do that. And I tried with all of my might to just get through the next 5 minutes. And I did. And then I reset, and I did another 5 minutes. And then I reset, and then I did another 5 minutes. And eventually I got through that day. And I just started to live that mode. My sales were completely down. I didn't want to go out and knock doors. I wasn't enthusiastic about helping people get new roofs. My sales completely tanked. My pipeline completely tanked. I was spending all my money on the house. I was losing literally everything. At the end of 2021, I was looking at my bank account. We were nearing Christmas. I wanted to be able to provide Christmas presents for my wife and my daughter. And being the top rep in my company, having already made a lot of money and doing really well, I looked at my bank account and realized I can't pay my mortgage in January. And I had to do one of the most humiliating things to me, which is to call my boss and say, I need money for January. I don't have enough. I've got a few jobs. I promise, I'll pay you back. I promise. I need money for January. And it was in that moment I realized that the hole that I was in, emotional, financial, spiritual, all of that, that as much as I was praying and depending on God, I had to put my boots on and take responsibility for what was mine. Still had to provide for my family. That didn't stop. I still had to provide for my wife, for my child, for myself. And so on Sunday, November 15th, I made a list. I wrote on my whiteboard, I need to get 35 jobs. I want to get out of this industry, but I got 35 jobs. And I started to knock doors like crazy. I grabbed my buddy's scooter. I found good houses that I knew were going to make good profit. And I said, I'm going to get back into this. I have to provide for my family. I have to rebuild my pipeline. There's no other choice. So I start knocking doors and I start getting signs and I start getting jobs. And in January, the company rolled out the yearly incentives and said, hey, our highest incentive, you got to hit $2.15 million. And we're going to give you a really, really awesome incentive. And I liked that idea. And I said, okay, I can do 2.15. I've never done 2.15 before. So I started to work. I went out there and I knocked doors and I went out there and I signed jobs and I brought in the commission checks and I was starting to make money again because I had to make the choice to do that. I had to put my boots on and go out there and just work. It was the only thing to do. When I started to have that mindset, when I just started to go out there and work despite all of the horrible things in my life that was going on, things actually started to work in my favor. Things started to get better. I was signing better jobs, I was getting better deals, and in September of that year, I looked back at my pipeline and realized that I had hit 2.5 million. So I quickly said, okay, I'm going to have the best year yet. I want to make this the best year yet, and I think I'm in shot of 3 million. So I'm going to go for 3 million. And I quickly did a pivot. I changed my goal from 2.15 to 3, and I hit it 2 weeks before the end of the year. I didn't even hear about Golden Door. It wasn't about the Golden Door. It was about providing for my family. It was about going out there and being the leader that I needed to be for myself, for my wife, for my child. And I did it because I made the choice to do it. And then in November of 2022, my buddy said, hey, we're all going to Door-to-Door Con this year and it's gonna be awesome. Here's this thing called Golden Door, you should apply. And I said, this is great, cool, I love it. And I applied and I got it. And so now I sit here on top of the industry. In a year and a half, I go from losing the will to live to having so much and being able now to give so much. So what does 2023 look like for me? It looks like trying something new. It looks like going into the dark. It looks like taking risk. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about going into the unknown, trying something new, seeing if you like it. What does it hurt? And so my goal for this year is a question. The question is, what if? What if I really gave myself to what I really want to do? What if I discovered what I really wanted to do? What if I gave it my all to go after whatever my purpose is, figure that out, and then just gun it, just go for it 100%. It's scary, and I'm kind of scared going into it. But there's this quote that I want to read to you that I'm living by. It's by Teddy Roosevelt, and it's about daring greatly. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievements, and who at worst fails, but at least fails while daring greatly. That's my story.